Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And today we are back with a standard review after we wrapped up the 12 Days of Christmas this past weekend. Had a lot of fun with that. But today we're excited to talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which came out from Dreamworks just before Christmas, starring Antonia Banderas as returning and reprising his role as the Puss in Boots character from the Shrek movies and the first Puss in Boots movie, along with Selma Hayek and a whole host of other actors.
A whole host.
I just noticed that Florence Pugh is in this movie, so that kind of blew my mind a little bit for a second.
Gosh, Florence Pugh got it. We were going through the cast, and we're like, oh, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize this. Oh my God, yeah, Florence Pugh.
So before we dive too far into that, Dylan, would you like to tell the people what Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is about?
Absolutely. If my mouse will work here we go. Puss in Boots discovers that his passion for adventure has taken its toll. He has burned through 8 of his 9 lives. Puss sets out on an epic journey to find the mythical last wish and restore his 9 lives.
Yeah, I gotta say, after Shrek 2, I was pretty much done with that whole part of DreamWorks' animation canon. I watched Shrek 3, which I did not care for. I never saw the 4th one, and I never saw the first Puss in Boots movie. And when I saw a trailer for this earlier in the year, I can't remember what movie I was at, but big eye roll from me.
Yep. Me too.
I felt like, my God, we're continuing with down this Shrek Puss in Boots. Like, who needs this? Aren't we done with these characters yet? Yeah. And then reviews started kind of slowly coming out with lots of like, I know, but kind of like, this is actually really good. And so you and I decided last weekend to go check it out.
Yep.
And I gotta say, I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed myself watching this movie.
Yeah, me too. I definitely had the same reaction when I saw the trailer. I think this was definitely going to be one that I would not have seen. But yeah, it's got like 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. And we just figured, all right, well, it's getting some buzz and let's go see. And kind of like you said, this whole Shrek DreamWorks kind of fairy tale world seems like it's been pretty played out by now.
Yeah.
But I guess they must have known. They're like, no, we have enough fresh ideas left that we can make one more good movie if you give us the chance.
Yeah, and also
that's kind of what this felt like.
Yeah, you mentioned the Rotten Tomatoes score. This has a 4.1 on Letterboxd right now.
Yeah,
which is bonkers. But yeah, and you and I aren't exactly the target audience for this movie, but we're definitely in the like more than welcome range.
Definitely.
For people who but like mostly like parents and kids is kind of who DreamWorks is going for here, but there's clearly enough stuff for people like you and I to enjoy this. Mostly I like the premise around somebody who's been able to live without fear of death. And now 8 of his 9 lives are up, and he's just kind of like us now. And it's a lot about existentialism, which it sets up some funny stuff that just works for kids. But the whole existential theme here works really well for adults, and they don't hammer it home so much to the point where you're not like drowning in it.
Yeah.
Like they walk a really good balance and a really good line between the sort of just like different take on fairy tale characters kind of humor that we've come to know from Shrek and Puss in Boots, while also just adding that existential element that adults are really going to appreciate.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of the humor worked for both adults and kids. I felt like there was a few times where it got really goofy and a few times where it got maybe something that was specifically just for the adults, which I liked too when it happened. But for the most part, they were able to walk that line. And I mean, we didn't, the theater we saw it in certainly wasn't crowded, but it felt like there was like a few other people maybe our age. There wasn't like any families in there, but like if there would have been, I think the kids would have had a good time. But I just felt like from the very beginning, it felt like it knew how to how to bring in all of the audience. Like it knew how to bring in the kids and the adults, like you were saying, with the existential kind of themes. And then also the idea that, you know, he's trying to find this fallen star, which will grant one wish to whoever finds it. But that's a dynamic enough thing that he's chasing that we also that it can also be used to give us character development on the bad guys and the other
Yeah,
people who are chasing it, because then we hear why they want one last wish and what they would use it for, which is a good, it's kind of just a good way of like easy kind of character development, having this goal that's like open to whoever gets there first, kind of.
yeah,
So it's
like
not like,
everyone's chasing this thing, and
yeah.
you can kind of imagine that they all want it for various reasons. A lot of those reasons from the characters we're sort of rooting for are hidden. There's kind of a
Hmm.
third party in this movie outside of just, you got like Puss in Boots, and so Antonia Banderas, Selma Hayek, who plays Kitty Softpaws, who I'm guessing is in the first one of these. I did not see that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and then they're paired with God, I need to find this guy's name. The dog, Harvey Guillen, who voices Perro.
Yep.
So we kind of
Hmm.
got our heroes there, and then the villain, Jack Horner, voiced by John Mulaney, and then this
Big
whole
Jack
other
Horner.
big Jack Horner. That's right. You got to know he's big Jack Horner now. And
Yeah.
then this other group, this is where we were kind of shocked, like Florence Pugh as Goldilocks, and then Olivia Colman as Mama Bear, and then the other two bears, like this sort of third group that kind of plays the like sometimes antagonists to Puss in Boots and other times allies. Like they kind of bounce around a bit. I like the
Hmm.
addition of them. I think they kept it fresh
Yeah.
because you got these three different groups instead of just like good guys and
Good
bad
and
guys
bad.
going for it and just back and forth between them.
Yeah,
I think they do that balance really well. I do think, you know, as an adult, some of the stuff that they're going for and the realizations and epiphanies that characters arrive at are a little predictable.
for sure. For them, I would say especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Like, so there was an element there where I thought, like, why is the movie disguising or like concealing
Trying to.
what
Yeah.
this wish is going to be and trying to make it a surprise at the end of it?
Hmm.
Um, Not a huge gripe, but I think that's something where I think, you know, that holds it back from reaching like a really good, like even the first two Shrek movies for me. It doesn't reach those levels,
Hmm.
but definitely better than like Shrek 3 or
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
several other animated movies I've seen this year. Like I think this is better than anything that Disney and Pixar have released this year
Yeah. I
between
would say
Strange
so.
World, Turning Red, and Lightyear.
Yeah, I liked this more than all three of the. Or I mean, Turning Red was the very beginning of the year. I know that
Right,
that definitely had some things I liked in it, but I would say,
right,
yeah, this is like way better than Strange World was.
for sure.
Like this, you know, this is one where it's like, yeah, it's for the kids, and yeah, it looks cool, but it also has a structure and a story to it that actually makes sense and is intriguing. And
Right.
like
I I do wanna
they,
talk about the animation style a little bit because I did see another DreamWorks movie earlier this year called The Bad Guys,
hmm.
which I thought was okay, but a little derivative and kind of felt like just Zootopia light at
Okay.
times. I
Hmm.
like this better than The Bad Guys, but what I noticed in both of these movies is that DreamWorks is kinda going for this. Did you notice the animation a little different than something like Shrek?
Yes.
Where they've got like it's still 3D animation, but it's almost like coated with 2D.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really interesting. And I think I like that they're going in this direction, and I think they're really close, but it's not quite working for me yet
Hmm.
throughout like the entire movie. I think it worked really well during the action sequences where it looks a little more cartoonish. And I think
Yeah.
that adds a level of like fun and some kind of like it's just more interesting visually than what you usually see.
Hmm.
But they didn't do that style for all the characters all the time. Like Puss in Boots isn't in this style, but other characters are for the whole movie.
Yeah.
And that bothered me a little bit. And I think they're really close to having their own unique visual style.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
really, really like that they're going for it outside of like where DreamWorks started. It just felt a little bit like, let's try to do what Pixar's doing
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
long time. And
Hmm.
I like the direction they're going. It didn't work the whole movie for me, but the highs were much more visually interesting than just your standard DreamWorks 3D movie.
Yeah, for sure. I think I noticed that in kind of the opening action sequence when he takes on that giant or whatever in the town. It was like, okay,
Yeah,
the action is definitely animated differently than the characters. And then like
for
later
sure.
when he would have his confrontation with like the big bad wolf, it felt like the wolf was done in a slightly different style than Puss in Boots was done. So when
I
they were fighting,
loved how the wolf looked. I
me
thought that
too.
was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought that that definitely worked. But yeah, I did notice it. It's like you were saying. It's kind of a classic 3D, very like detailed animation mixed with kind of almost 2D, kind of rough, almost comic book style every once in a while.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like what they're going for. I think they
it's
should
like they took a
definitely.
little inspiration from Into the Spider-Verse,
I think so.
a
Yeah, I
little
think.
bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're quite there yet, but I like the direction they're headed, and it certainly makes it more interesting than like something from Illumination or past DreamWorks movies. So I like that quite a bit.
Yep. How do you feel about the characters in general? Just kind of, the whole bringing the fairy tale characters and with a modern twist on them.
I mean, it's always fun to see kind of what different twist they're going to give us. Sometimes it feels a little bit like, okay, they need it. Like it feels a little bit too much like they're constantly trying to like work against expectations for what this character is going to be. Like everybody has to be a little edgy and different.
Yeah,
But overall, I really like what they were doing. I think Puss in Boots is a good character. I like the dog a lot more than I thought I was going to.
yeah, me too. When we first met
Um,
him, I was like, oh my god,
yeah,
I
I mean
hate
that,
this character. But
and Pedro and Kitty Softpaws, they fell into the more traditional or like predictable characters for me,
hmm
where I think the structure, the narrative structure of the story, there was nothing particularly special about either of them, but they have good personalities. And
hmm
then you and I just sort of marveled at the fact that he's technically not named Jiminy Cricket in this movie because they don't have the naming rights.
uh
I believe he's called Ethical Bug is the name of this
huh.
character. He's Jiminy Cricket, and you and I were marveling at how Jiminy Cricket is the funniest character in two different movies in 2022, which is amazing.
Yeah, this and Pinocchio, he really
Yep.
steals the show. Just the decisions, we won't give away the joke, but just the decisions they made with him and his voice and his manner, like, and the role he plays in the story is just
Yeah.
that was inspired. I made the joke when we left out, like maybe they just came up with that and we're like, we need to build an entire movie because this Jiminy Cricket stuff that we got is gold, baby. Like we need
Yeah,
to
and it
like make the rest of it work so we can get this guy on screen.
it absolutely is. And then we get a nice little teaser for potentially Shrek 5 at the end,
It did seem that way, yeah.
which is interesting, and I'm more interested now that Puss in Boots didn't suck.
Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, maybe they've like regrouped. They took a few
Mhm.
years off from this thing and maybe they got some more fresh ideas, and it felt like that here. So if they
Yeah.
build off this for Shrek 5, I think it'll be worth seeing.
Agreed. Yep. I think if maybe like you said, they got new people in there, new creative team, just kind of new fresh approach. And if they can keep this type of thing going and like you said, maybe keep keep refining that visual style that they're trying to get.
That'll be really
Um
interesting to see if they apply that to the Shrek franchise, because that is like easily DreamWorks' biggest thing. Like
mhm.
Shrek,
Mhm.
Kung Fu Panda, and like How to Train Your Dragon are like kind of, I think, the three pinnacles of like DreamWorks franchises, and
Yeah.
especially Shrek is kind of where they first exploded. I'd
Mhm.
be very curious to see if they change up the visual style for Shrek even a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. All right, but if there's nothing else, is it time to get to the stars?
It is time to get to the stars, and we will be right back. Okay. I can go
Okay,
first if
go
you'd
for it.
like. Yeah, so I'm gonna give this 3 stars. I think they did a good job, and it was shocking to me that this movie wasn't terrible. Um, I think it's a little more bold visually. It's got fun characters. I like the premise of this movie. I think just generally, narratively and thematically, it's more predictable than I would like. I think I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like halfway through the movie, I was just like, okay, I know exactly how the arcs for all of these characters are going to end, and it was
Yeah.
exactly that at the end of the movie. So not great there. It's not bad by any means, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing surprising at all in the second half of the movie, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie and definitely something that I would recommend for pretty much any family to go see.
Nice. All right, on to me. I'm going to go just slightly higher. I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I thought I was pleasantly surprised with the characters, like the pace. I thought it had a very good pace. It hit the ground running and it just kind of kept going and didn't and like that with the type of humor. I wouldn't say that all the humor always hit for me. Like it gets a little goofy, and some of the jokes they kind of double or triple down on, where it's like, well, we probably could have just had that one time. But and I will say that the Big Jack Horner character, as the movie went on, just seemed less and less and less like dynamic. Like he was
Yeah,
just like
he makes
that.
a big
That it was
entrance, and then he
big
kind of
entrance,
just.
and
Ugh.
yeah, so that was probably the Big Jack Horner character is holding it back a little bit for me, but yeah, Goldilocks and the Three Bears were great. Yeah, Olivia Colman and Ray Winstone as Papa Bear as well. I recognized him right away. I thought that was cool. Yeah, I think that this I can totally see why it's getting rave reviews. I think if you were if you had kids and you'd been to every other animated movie this year, this probably would feel like, oh my God, like a huge step up, because at
Yeah,
least it's trying to be smarter and funnier and push some boundaries. Um, and yeah, I gotta say, I grinned and chuckled through the whole thing, and so yeah, I'm gonna give this a 3.5. Thought it was very good, pleasantly surprised, one of my biggest surprises of the year. And yeah, I would recommend it for a family for sure. I think everyone will have a good time.
or just two dudes in their early 30s can go see it as well, just like we
That
did.
too. I wasn't mad at it at all.
Nope,
No, I was that was fun.
not at all.
Um, all right. Well, unless there is anything else, I believe it is your turn to put a wrap on the show.
It is.
All right, take it away.
It's going to be champagne wishes and caviar dreams from now on.